And by the way, when you're saying these numbers, what it makes me think about is this. So why, if you go back 1940s, only 4% of kids that were born in America are to a single mother. Okay,
Right.
that increased from 4% to 40%.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and the numbers are staggering where it's at today, specifically
70%.
in 70% in blacks and different in different communities. Why do you think this happened? And if you were to say, well, here's how we can get away from this. This is how to fix it. So one, why did it happen? How do we get here? Two, how would you fix it?
Well, first of all, we got here because we had the social policy that incentivized single parents.
Wow.
In other words, I had a young couple. She said that my husband, my husband's a janitor and I'm a secretary, and he lost his job.
Okay.
She said I applied for welfare as a married couple and they refused me.
Wow.
But she said if I was a single mother, then I can get help.
Wow.
And so you really provide a disincentive for marriage, and you wonder why you get it. You get more of what you reward and less of what you punish.
Exactly.
And so over those decades, we have punished single parent households. The more you work, the more in other words, the more you work, the more perverse incentives for you. If I work and get a raise, I'm going to lose childcare. So that's why we have a system that disincentivizes work.
Wow.
And marriage.
He's correct.
And you had certain politicians that would use that, but they would spin it for votes. Oh, we're paying poor women to have kids. You would hear that in political speeches. I'm going to change that. We're paying poor women to have kids. And it made it sound like that the poor women were the problem.
Right.
That they're just taking advantage of it. When you go back and what you're talking about, I think it's important to look at Lyndon Johnson and remember when they were saying the Great Society, it was Great Society for who?
Good question.
Because the government was our government has been actually pretty bad at getting Americans to move and change. They're pretty good at getting us upset.
Yes.
But they really don't get Americans, if you look at history, to really move and change. Our government has never really led. But our government has been excellent at being a catalyst of where they want us to go and to let us go. And to your point, they create this catalyst. What they say with explosive. The explosive isn't the problem. It's the catalyst you put in the explosive.
Right.
So always keep those guys separate.
Yeah.
Government has been the catalyst. And what you're talking about is what they did is they knew what they were doing. And they knew that these things would be a catalyst of changing behavior because they couldn't stand at the pulpit of government and demand that you change, but they could put things out there and sit back and watch. And that's what you're saying.
Right. But I also realized that the question is, what are solutions?
There we go.
If you say that 70% of those families are raising children that are dropping out of school, it means 30% are not. What we do at the Woodson Center is we go into low-income communities and we go into the homes of the 30% to find out what is going on in those households.
Yeah.
These are people who are raising children that are not dropping out of school, they're not in jail, they're not on drugs. They are confronted with the same economic circumstance, and so the question is, what is it that's going on there?
Right,
that's
because success leaves clues.
Success
leaves clues.
That's why I fault conservatives also, is that they have been preoccupied when it comes to poverty, but only studying failure.
Come on,
so Charles Murray and some of the others, all they do is talk about, okay, if people on welfare, let's take away the perverse incentives. I'm for work requirements.
Okay.
I'm for drug testing.
Okay.
But you can't stop there.
Come on.
What we do at the Woodson Center is that we go look for capacity.
Yes, we do.
And so many of the people in the 30%, we need to hold them up and take what works for the 30% and expand it to the 70%. And that's what we do. But it's a moral and spiritual crisis, and it is not an economic and social crisis.
Keep cooking.
But policy, be the left or right of center, takes very little into account of restoration, moral redemption, faith. And many of our groups who have been able to survive under the worst of circumstances is because of their faith. But the whole issue of faith is not even a factor in supporting people's restoration. We have gone into some of the most drug-infested, crime-ridden neighborhoods where there were 53 gang murders in the 5 square block area in 2 years, 25 years ago, in D.C. We supported 5 young men who were ex-offenders who came to Christ and became redeemed. But they had the moral authority and the social trust of their peers.
They do.
And so they went into these neighborhoods and brought the leadership of these kids who were doing destructive things. And they became agents of remoralization of these kids. And it's just like in the marketplace, only 3% of the people are entrepreneurs. They generate 70% of the jobs, right? Well, a lot of these organizations are social entrepreneurs. It only takes a small number of them if you can change them and make them an agents of a restoration. They can change a whole community, and we found that to be the case in this community called Benning Terrace, by just going in and reaching 16 kids who were leading predators and changing their values and their attitudes.
How do you do that?
By witnessing to them. You take some man who has been in jail, who has faced all the challenges from an abused household, and saying, you are not defined by the worst of what you were. You and I'm a witness that you don't have to stay there because you've been there.
Where did this self-help mindset come to you?
This is good.
Where did this self-help mindset come?
By looking at what we did in the past. In other words, what I've done by learning, if our people could, in the face of slavery and discrimination, build families and restore their communities, then all we've got to do is go back and take the values that served the interests of our people then and apply them today. In other words, taking old values and apply them to new realities, with the consequence that you can. But a witness is more powerful than an advocate. An experience will always prevail against an argument. I debated this with Hawk Newman. It's on YouTube for 1 hour. I didn't argue with him. I confronted his proposition with my facts and saying, if we were able to learn and close the education gap under segregation, why can't we do it today?
Man, y'all, it is, man. Whew. Brother, y'all, there's so much wisdom that was just shared there. So much wisdom and excellence and solutions given there and experience, and man, it was so and guys, to be honest with you, it really galvanized healthy discussions with my immediate family and of course my external family, my mother and friends as well, concerning this topic. And it was just, no matter if you had a liberal bent or conservative bent or just an independent bent, I mean, it was just, I mean, healthy.